Well, welcome back to part 4 of recognizing and sustaining volunteers, meaningful ways to say thank you, from the subtle nods to the banging of pots and pans. We're glad you're here with us for part 4. So previously, we gave you an overview and introduction in part 1 of the topic of volunteer recognition. In part 2, we looked at understanding volunteer motivations, and some of this will help us understand how to recruit volunteers as well, but also to be mainly very strategic and effective in how we thank and appreciate our volunteers. So in part 3, we reviewed some ideas for volunteer recognition, some actual activities, and we looked at some pros and cons of some pretty standard and frequently asked questions. And now we'll get into, and we got into the nitty-gritty and challenged you with your own biases and your ideas for volunteerism. So there's a lot to think about. But now as we look at part 4, we're wondering, how is it going? How are your volunteer recognition activities working for you at your library? How do you know that? How do you know how they're working? That's the topic for this segment. So this is a practical piece that we're hoping that will be very useful for you. We could easily assume that our recognition efforts are effective and well received, especially if we're doing the types of activities that we really like, that feed our reason for our motivations for volunteering. So, and we feel good about it, right? But it's really important to reemphasize a few points. Volunteers are here with us for their own reasons and their own motivations, not yours. And they respond differently to ways of offering a thank you. So really thinking about that. And as we last discussed, we need to check our own biases. And this is an important one, I know, especially for me, and being more objective in approaching the topic of volunteer recognition.
So to support this ability to evaluate your efforts, we've developed a volunteer recognition success measures form. You'll find it in your handouts on page 7. It's divided into 2 parts. One is an internal audit. The second part is external audit. And so we offer it as a tool for you to try to objectively measure your success and how it's going. And we're going to walk through each line of this form and give you a chance to maybe check the box that applies to you as, yeah, this is something I know and I've got it, or the middle box, it's on my radar, but I know I can do better, or gosh, I never even thought of that. So it's just to give you some thinking. We're going to take a look at each line here. Number 1, so recognition guidelines are established in our policies and procedures manual. Policies and procedures manual. I know that's something I've heard often, that we've in our programs we intend to make, but often we don't get around to it. But one, it's a good practice to have a manual, everything in writing like that. And when you have that, to include your volunteer recognition guidelines. So that's something to think about. Number 2, those recognition activities are built into our strategic plan. That's a key part of supporting our volunteer force. So keep that in mind as you're doing strategic planning. Okay, how can we give some recognition to our volunteers? Number 3, we follow through and implement our planned activities. I'm a great planner. Sometimes my implementation and follow through is a bit lacking. So it's worth having a line there by itself that we planned something and then we actually were able to follow through on it. Look at number 4. Volunteer recognition activities are coordinated with and complement the overall library volunteer activities. We discussed that a little bit already. So here's a chance for you to kind of think about it and put a check mark where you think you fall in. Of course, this is a kind of a planning form for you to come back to later and to be able to work with. Number 5, volunteer input is solicited in designing volunteer recognition activities. There's the phrase I'm hearing a lot now. Often we refer to it with our adult learners, but nothing for us without us. Well, maybe that applies to volunteers also. When we're planning things for them, or perhaps they should be involved in the planning of that to be clear about what really works for them. And so again, these are all ideas just to get you thinking and doing some planning. Number 6, we use a variety of recognition strategies. So it's not just the once a year annual volunteer celebration. We're looking at other ways to acknowledge our volunteers also. 7, we regularly evaluate our volunteer recognition events and programs. So do we stop, pause, and take a look at them and see if they're effective, if they're accomplishing what we hope and what we need for them to do?
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we look at activities that are outside of our internal operations, activities that check in directly with the volunteers. So, number 1, that volunteers often share with us their appreciation for the recognition they receive. So, are you hearing from your volunteers after you've sent out a card or you've had an event about how much they enjoyed it and how much they appreciate being part of the program? I know I love seeing a volunteer that just comes in and seems tickled. I love this program, or this is such a great program, and it's because they feel a part of the program. Number 2, we annually survey our volunteers for program satisfaction. Ooh, Cathay has created and included a volunteer satisfaction survey for us on the next page, and you're welcome to use it as is, of course, or to modify it. I know I appreciate seeing this template. This is something that we haven't done at our local program. The idea, it makes me feel a bit vulnerable, but what rich information you'd gain from doing an annual volunteer survey. So it's definitely going on my list. Our annual survey includes questions about the impact of recognition activities, so that this is even a part of the survey that you're sending out, and hearing back about what's working and what isn't. And on this next slide, some real ideas about what is meaningful from your volunteers, what they really appreciate that your program's doing well, and what's meaningful to them. And number 4, volunteers evaluate our volunteer recognition events after the event. And we do this to some degree, and maybe during a meetup, we'll do an evaluation, but we haven't done a lot of that about the actual recognition events themselves. So that would definitely be another one for us to keep in mind locally. And this one, we involve adult learners in recognizing the volunteer service of their volunteers, of their tutors or their volunteers. And I don't know. I'm thinking about how this might look. And I bet, Cathay, you have experience with this.
Not directly. I think I could have done it much more, but certainly we would have volunteers and adult learners on committees, but I haven't been so progressive as to have done that myself, but I'm hearing from other programs in the field here in California where they've done that, and the learners are very active and very involved.
I think I did hear of one program. I don't want to name it just in case I'm confused, but where they involved their adult learners in writing thank you notes to volunteers if they wanted, and staff was there to provide support. So yeah, I think there's more we could be doing here. and it would sure be meaningful coming from the adult learners.
Yeah.
All right. Now we encourage you to stop and complete the form in your workbook on page 7 if you didn't do it as we walk through it, and to take some time to reflect and figure out just how you're doing in these different areas.
So this next piece, we're going to talk about making a plan. Now, more importantly, what is realistic for your program to do in the coming year to improve your volunteer recognition work? And we really emphasize realistically, you know, what resources do you have that you could spare to work on this project or to implement something? What is your staff availability, your budget, and time? But even if it's a tiny step, make that step and plan it out, put it on paper. So the assignment, your group work, well, hopefully your group work, but maybe individually, you'll be checking in with your colleagues on what plans they will consider for your program, what planning. Perhaps you'd like to form a work group to check in with each other for accountability, to follow through with what you've decided and encourage one another and share ideas that work and others that don't work. So really look at this plan and bring people together around it as you talk about recognizing your volunteers at your library. Now there's a quote that we really like, and it's from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And we really think that's true. So as you look at volunteer recognition, even that smile or the cheers effect, you know, that hello, making them feel included and valued, is even that small step is important.
So it is back to the cheers effect, isn't it? That everybody knows your name and they're glad you came. And we're really happy, really glad that you came and joined us on this exploration of volunteer recognition. So have fun with it. Hope to hear great things coming from the field and what you're doing. And that concludes the course. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.